Hello and welcome to Sue Takes Our Take on the hottest sporting moment right now. And right now, what we have is that Steve Smith officially will open for Australia in Test cricket, and that's the first time in his career. He has batted all across, right from the lower order to the lower middle order, all the way up to number three. And now this is the first time Cricket Australia and the selectors have placed faith in Steve Smith post the retirement of David Warner that he would open the batting for Australia against the first test again with the West Indies starting in Adelaide. Kriska, your first thoughts?
Mixed feelings. I'm a huge Steve Smith fan, and an opportunity to watch him right from the beginning of Test matches absolutely thrilling. But right now, it feels like I won, but at what cost? And that is what we are here for. That is what we want to unpack. Because if I, being a Steve Smith fan, an opportunity to see him um, as soon as I switch on the TV at the beginning of a summer test match, if I not 100% into it, I can assure you neither are many other Australia fans out there. So let's have it, Gandalf. So where is the controversy coming from? Maybe controversy is slightly stretching it. Why is this a heated discussion? Who are the other players in contention for this? And has Steve Smith taken a leap of faith, or is it just another stroke of genius from George Bailey and the selection team, who has, let's face it, has made a lot of supposedly questionable calls, including the appointment of our current Australia limited overs coach or even our captain, which may not have been the obvious first choice, but in retrospect, we have seen how brilliant those calls have been. Now, this is something we just have to wait and watch out for.
I'm not waiting and watching out for, especially in this matter. I think this is going to be a brilliant move. I don't know who put this idea up first. To be honest, I read it somewhere where it mentioned that Shane Watson was the first one who actually proposed this idea that Steve Smith should be opening the innings for Australia. And the reason why he said that is because Smith probably looks a little disinterested at number four these days. It's sort of like he has already achieved nirvana at number four and number three and maybe number five a bit, where he averages more than 55 in each of these positions. And at number four and number three, he averages higher. So I think the whole challenge that Steve Smith expects out of every cricket ball. I'm not saying every match. I'm saying every ball. They say in test matches and event. For Steve Smith, it is more so. He expects the challenge to come to him. He speaks. He does a lot of self-talk after every delivery. He speaks back to absolutely no one. After facing every delivery. So I think he's going to have a nice, enjoyable time opening the batting for Australia. Like you said, first thing, Australia bats first. You see Steve Smith. What more do you expect, and what more do you
That's
want
true.
as an
That's true.
Australia fan?
Hey, so there are two schools of thought here in Test cricket, right? So one is opening against the best pace bowlers in the world. That's the toughest job in the world. If you're walking out as a Test batsman, that is one. But then there is also this old school thought that your best player, best batsman in the team, they're supposed to be at one down or at best two down, right? So you take any of the Fab Four or Fab Five. I'm just gonna add Babar Azam for the numbers here. Kohli, Williamson, Joe Root, they all bat at either number three or number four. They've had stellar records, and I don't think any of the other selection committee would dare move them beyond those two spots, right? Three or four. And I'm quite surprised that Australia went through with this. And the way it was done felt a lot like one of those PR moves. So you had Vato bringing this up, like you pointed out. Then out of nowhere, you had people from the current team just hyping up Steve Smith to be the opener. So, of course, the chief hype officer for Steve Smith, Manas Labuschagne, he was the one who said, hey, Steve Smith is someone, the higher he bats up in the order, the better he gets. We want to quickly pull up the stats and let's validate what Labuschagne mentioned.
Absolutely. So if you look at this, at number five, he of course started lower in the lower order as a bowling all rounder at number eight and nine. But if you look at
Yeah,
number five to
how?
four here on the screen,
Yeah,
he averages 57 at five, 61 at four, and 67 at number three, which is the position that Marnus Labuschagne took up the moment he came
yeah,
into the team.
mm,
And Steve Smith has traded that position for number four, which
yeah,
he is batting at right now. And the higher he bats, the better he gets, perhaps. I think he loves batting. And
yeah,
from some of the stats that I also pulled up, I don't have it on screen right now, but what I saw is that among the 32 international test hundreds that Steve Smith scored, if you look at a majority of them, almost 70-80% of them, Steve Smith scored his centuries when he came down at like 70 for one or 70 for two. When he batted at number three, it was usually around 45 for one or seven. Between 45 to 70 was when he was batting at number three, and when he was batting at number four, the second wicket would fall somewhere around the 70 to 100 run mark, which goes on to say that neither David Warner nor Usman Khwaja or any of the openers who paired up with Warner during these phases in Steve Smith's career batted for too long, where they were posting scores like 250 for two or something like that for Steve Smith to come and bat. So I think he thrives against the new ball. Whenever there is an early wicket, he loves that challenge. He actually likes the moving ball, so it's not going to be any
yeah,
different, especially in the last few
absolutely.
years.
Hmm. Uh,
Especially in the
but
last few years, if
again,
you
so
have seen, he, David Warner was almost a walking wicket. He would,
yeah,
especially in the Ashes and also
especially
in
in
other
England.
away conditions.
Yeah,
Yeah, so David Warner was almost a walking wicket, and if David Warner scores, then Usman Khwaja was a walking wicket. He would
mm.
either run himself out or others out, or he would actually, go out,
He was a running
edging.
wicket.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good one. So
Yeah.
either way, Steve Smith or Manas Labuschagne would be at the crease within
Mm.
the first hour
Much
of play.
earlier than what we would have liked
Exactly,
for
exactly,
them
and
to be.
they went on to
Um,
make big runs batting in those positions.
yeah, yeah. That brings me to the next point. See, Steve Smith is an all-time great. Very likely that he'll end up as the greatest of all time in this format of the game by the time he hangs up his boot. So nobody is questioning his abilities to face the new ball here. So the question is, what are we taking away from the number three or number four spot from Steve Smith? Among a lot of other things like stability and that anchor innings that he's the best at in the Australian team. It's the ability to play spin. So right now you only have two other guys who can claim that they're decent players of spin, which is Manas Labuschagne, and other is Travis Head, who is an altogether different player, and he is one of those generational talents who is good with across conditions, who is good with different bowling lineups. It doesn't matter for him, but there is no question of you moving up Travis from any lower than a number six or number five at this point. How much is the middle order getting weakened? So let's say if Australia tour India, you have the likes of an Akshar Patel or an Ashwin, God forbid, one of the openers, even Steve Smith, should he depart with the new ball, all of a sudden you're looking at a razor thin lineup that any half decent spin attack will run through with these.
Uh, I hate to say it, but I'm afraid that's anyway going to happen, whether Steve Smith opens the batting or not. I really had hopes from the Australian side. I really think that they also played well competitively this time around in the Border Gavaskar Trophy in India. Although they had their bad luck, and India outplayed them in certain places. So definitely there. But jokes apart, I think the middle order gets weakened a bit and also strengthened a bit. Weakened a bit if you look at Steve Smith, the giant, moving from there to the opening slot. But then you have Cameron Green coming at number four. And not many of them know that Cameron Green is number four for Western Australia as well. And he has an average of about 60 batting in that
Yeah,
position.
interesting you
And
bring that up.
that's exactly where Cameron Green came to the forefront
Yeah,
of selection committee's
that's
mind.
true. So
And yeah, so that's going
Cameron,
to strengthen the number four position.
mm,
Travis
yeah,
Head is not a great player of spin yet. Obviously, he will struggle against someone like Ashwin or others, but he's good. He's good. He can play square of the wicket, horizontal bat shots. He's really good with those things, but not comparable to someone like Steve Smith or Manas Labuschagne yet.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
and
he's
yeah,
literally the third best player of spin in the current Australian lineup.
yeah,
I don't think you
absolutely.
can challenge that. Yeah.
But let's
Interesting
also
that you
look
bring
at
up
the other options.
Cameron Green. Hmm.
Yeah, let's also look
Yeah,
at
I think we
the
should
other
probably save up
options.
Cameron Green for the last.
Yeah,
So
let's look at the other
let's talk
options that
about,
we had.
yeah,
So you have Matt
two
Renshaw,
players.
yeah, and Marcus
Look at
Harris.
those
Any
numbers.
comments?
Yeah, yeah.
Any comments from your side?
This is what feasting. This is like a feast for my eyes as an Australia fan. Looking at those numbers, especially the average, both in Test and first class cricket. I'm for, I don't know, some unreasonable bias. I like Matt Renshaw a little bit more than Marcus Harris. Uh, I think it's got to do with the +4 in average, but also that Renshaw is 27. I think Marcus Harris has been given one too many chances. He has never particularly looked convincing. Like an opener with a
Absolutely.
highest score of 80,
Yeah. No,
that's not
I
the case
totally
that you want
agree.
to make for. Yeah,
Yeah,
when
I
you go
totally
up
agree. I
against, yeah,
do not want to bring in the interstate
yeah,
wars here, Western Australia versus the others, and Justin Langer's favoritism and all those things. That's a different topic altogether. We do not want to venture into that territory. But I have also been never convinced by Marcus Harris's ability in the international circuit. And he has been given enough chances. I think he's done. I mean, maybe if he wants to make a second coming, like a Mitch Marsh or someone, then so be it. But then right now, it's probably not his time. Matt Renshaw, I'm actually a big fan of how he plays innings long and slow. But we
he's the
already have
closest to
Usman Khwaja
we
doing
have
that
got to
role.
Kawaja. Yeah. So the question is, do you want to switch from, Australia has the history of two openers having very similar styles, Hayden and Gilchrist. You don't have to look any further. And uh, lineup of Kawaja and Renshaw would be the exact opposite. Resolute. You can confidently. The scoring rate may not be great. They'll probably go in at like 90 for no loss in some 39
My
overs
my
or
only
something.
my only fear is that they will start batting like England in the 90s and the
Yeah.
2000s. So especially when England bats like baseball, I
Yeah.
do not want
Mm,
Australians to be batting like two
that's
runs
true.
per over. Yeah, and uh,
Yeah.
and
I don't.
and in the worst case that they lose two quick wickets, they would be
Mhm.
150 odd at the end of day's play, having
Yeah.
lost two wickets, and that takes
Mm,
them nowhere to win a test match.
that's true. Yeah. And I think that style of Test cricket is outdated. I don't think you can survive. It's good that we have Kawaja there to hold the fort at one end. Probably why Renshaw and Kawaja did not make sense. That said, I do want to move on to an option that logically made the most sense. This is
And
a
that's
name that
the
we are all,
elephant in the room.
yeah,
Are you talking about Cameron Bancroft?
yes, of course. Do you mind pulling up the stats for Bancroft? It's very unfortunate that we have come to associate Cameron Bancroft with South Africa and Sandpaper Gate, because there has
Just like
been
how you came
very
to
serious. Yeah,
just like how you came to associate David Warner with Sandpaper Gate and South Africa.
yeah. You should check out the David Warner special that we rolled out. Quick plug
Yeah,
to that
absolutely.
episode that we did. That's already one of our most watched episodes. Viewers are loving it. You should check that out. But coming back to Bancroft,
Yeah, I
I
don't
would
have the
say
stats
it's.
ready.
Yeah.
I don't have the
Mhm.
stats ready, but he has been
I
prolific.
can I can just quickly read that up for you. So
Yeah, he has been prolific in
Cameron,
the last two seasons. Why
yeah,
don't you go for it? Yeah, call the stats out.
absolutely, yeah. So he's in fact the top scorer for Sheffield this season, and he scored 500 runs at 60 plus average or close to 60. That's remarkable. And he's a right-hander, so already have the left right combination if you want to open with Kawaja, that working out for you. And that's why there has been very serious allegations made by the general public that this was a very biased call to not include Cameron Bancroft for whatever happened with Sandpaper Gate. Now that Warner has moved away, you only have two culprits still in the scene, right? And obviously, Steve Smith is the poster child of Australian cricket for this generation. and you're not gonna pin this on him, which unfortunately leaves young Cameron Bancroft. I mean, young is again relative. He's already 31. I think he is an unfortunate victim of that. But like you said, that's the elephant in the room.
But do
I
you think?
personally,
But do you think that it was a political call based on his involvement in Sandpaper Gate? Because what I feel is that this is in George Bailey's words, and also Pat. I think Pat Cummins or someone. Um,
yes, there has
is
been
this is
news
a
that Pat
purely
Cummins even called up Bancroft and said, "Hey,
yeah,
no hard
and
feelings, mate."
it's a
Yeah,
purely cricketing decision, is
cricketing
what George
decision.
Bailey
Yeah,
officially called out in the
that's
presser,
true.
and I feel that it's probably true. They look, they didn't select Matt Renshaw into the squad
Mm,
to for him to open. Matt Renshaw gives Australia the flexibility, and you want that 12th man to give you the
yeah.
flexibility to bat anywhere in the order should someone fall ill or someone injure themselves. So
Mm,
Matt Renshaw offers you that flexibility to bat at 5 or 6 as well. He's played in some of those positions in the middle order for Queensland for his local
mm.
side. So which Cameron Bancroft may not be offering. He's a pure specialist opener,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. I agree with that, Gandalf. But funny you should bring that up. Who are we looking to replace? One of the greatest specialist openers in Australia
and
cricket
and
history.
and one of the most prolific run scorers at number 3 and 4, but also the hungriest right now. We should address the fact that Steve Smith probably is not being himself over the last year.
That's true.
May not be a cause of alarm yet. He scored at 42, 43 over the last calendar year, almost 900 plus runs,
Mm.
which is a dream for many people at number four
Yeah,
and five.
yeah.
And anyone in the New Zealand team or West Indies or South Africa would actually play in the international side with a lot of pride with those numbers. But having been Steve Smith, having seen those high standards, we feel that he's probably on the decline, or probably he himself gives out that in terms of his choice of shots while getting out
Yeah, he
in the
looks
last year.
shaky, and
Yeah,
bowlers have figured out his, batting stance where he shuffles and bats at almost the fourth stump, and he's been getting out a lot on LBWs, and there is the odd one that Nixon goes to the slip,
yeah, the
and
odd one
I'm
that
sure
squares him up.
Steve Smith has there is enough justification to hand out the spot to Steve Smith. Once again, I want to bring up there is no argument or qualms about it. But my problem is Australia has this heritage of trusting players in the domestic circuit. So how the whole setup works is it's almost like a conveyor belt, right? So you have a set of playing 11 or maybe 12th man and 13th man, and they go on play for the international side, and you add for every one of these positions you have a domestic player who is ready to take over when the time is right, and that's why I said it works like a conveyor belt system. So it's like walking through Wada airport, and Cameron Bancroft has bid his time. He has had a terrific record. Like by all means, he deserves to be the next opener for Australia purely from a sporting sense. If he is not going to be picked up, what does that say about the heritage, about the system? Do you think what the message that this is sending to the youngsters in the domestic circuit is actually encouraging? I absolutely don't think so. I think this casts a lot of question marks. It feels like almost like pandering to Steve Smith. As much a great as he is, if you want to find your best form, it's up to you to work on it. I don't think somebody else's opening spot being handed over to you is the right way to do that. And this coming from me, a Steve Smith fan who
No,
took Warner's case.
I'm not
Yeah,
taking that. I'm not excited because it's going to help Steve Smith out. I'm also excited because it's a win-win. And at this point, I wouldn't trust Cameron Bancroft fully. I know he has the credentials right now as far as his Sheffield Shield form is concerned. But it's not that he was banned after the Sandpaper Gate and then he's coming back now. He was given a chance in 2019 where I think he fared really poor. He did not play well at all in 2019. I think it was an Ashes series where he was given an opportunity, and maybe a South Africa series. I'm not sure of it either, but he didn't. And post that, he was actually dropped. He was not banned. He was dropped, and then came Usman Khwaja, and then Marcus Harris, and that circus with Justin Langer trying to sideline Usman Khwaja, and all those things happened. But what I feel is that Steve Smith being there, and this being a reflection of the current domestic structure and not giving enough confidence to the younger players out there, I don't think that's pretty true. It's a cause of concern either. If you look at the trends here on screen right now, almost like 6 or 7 opening batters, long-term opening batters. I'm not talking about makeshift ones. Long-term opening batters of the past have been promoted up the order after they have spent some time in the middle of the order, including some of the best openers that we know in Usman Khwaja, Shane Watson. Shane
This is
Watson's
actually quite fascinating.
yeah, Shane Watson's career actually, thanks to cricket.com.au for this stats, but Shane Watson's career actually got resurrected because he moved to the opening spot. And then you have someone like Justin Langer, who's a legend, David Boone, and then Bob Simpson himself, who was averaging 19 before opening. And then after becoming an opener, he's a legendary opener now. So I think it's definitely not something which was not tried before. And to try it with Steve Smith, who's so much into his career right now, probably walking into the twilight phase of his career. Maybe he may play for another couple of years as an opener, or he might retire as an opener. We never know, based on how he performs. That's the reason why it is surprising, because it's come too late into the career right now. And
This is absolutely true, and I want to
yeah,
call out both Cricket Australia and Steve Smith for the sheer audacity, right? And I mean that as a compliment. For a great like Steve Smith, these last 2 years, this is what is going to help cement his legacy as the all-time great in this format. And if you look at Joe Root, who has had his own, second coming after baseball, the way that he has been batting. Kane Williamson has been on a dream run the last 2 years.
absolutely. Joe Root
Maybe
plays
there
those
is
audacious. Joe
case to
Root
be
plays
made
those
for
audacious
Virat.
shots
Yeah,
right now, which are seen only in 2020 and in the 100. And you'll be really shocked. Someone
yeah,
of the caliber
mhm,
of Joe Root, who is called as the one of the Fab Four batters in the world in Test cricket,
yeah.
plays those shots early in the innings, and he
Now he
got
has
out to a
become a
few of them.
flamboyant four. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's true.
So,
The reason that I brought
so
up
Chris,
is how Steve Smith is willing to put his legacy on the line because he just wants to challenge himself. I think that's really admirable, and I hope that really works out for him. And it's just something that we have to
yeah,
wait and watch.
yes. Look, if he was just playing for himself, stat padding, trying to score a few runs at the top of the order, mind you, this is the toughest position for any batter to be in. Why do we rate someone like even David Warner so high? Because it's a really tough spot to bat in when the new ball is moving. Opening batting is the toughest thing to do in Test cricket as a batter. So let's face it. Uh, you know, once the ball gets old, it gets easier to bat on. I'm not saying it's easier. It's the easiest, but then it's at least not as tough as for the opening batters. So he has accepted the challenge. One, if he was thinking about just himself, he wouldn't do that. He's doing it for the team, and when I say he's doing it for the team, I'll tell you why. So the team composition would look like this. At number four, I mean, there is no way for Cameron Green to come into this team, right? Because Mitch Marsh is in probably the form of his life. He's peaking slowly. He's probably
Yeah,
reached a peak and he's going to stay there for some time. Mitch Marsh has effectively prevented Cameron Green from coming into the team and warming the bench right now. So for Cameron Green to come into the team, he has to either fit into the opening slot or in the middle order somewhere. And record, at least in the domestic circuit, shows that Cameron Green fits in really well in the middle of the order. And that's where at number 4 specifically, Cameron Green averages 60 plus in domestic cricket. Of course, his first class record is here for everyone to see. He averages 47 plus. His test record is not the kind that you would expect given the hype that he had when he entered into the Australian
yeah.
team. But then he has played a lot of innings where he showed a lot of
I think he
character.
has definitely gotten really better the last year
Yeah.
also.
So he's Cameron Green is here to stay. He's the future of Australian middle order and Australian cricket. So someone probably they are looking up in terms of making him something like molding him into a Ben Stokes or a Jack Carlis for that matter, or someone like that, because his bowling is also not really bad. I mean, currently he's
Yeah.
not been among the wickets, but he's definitely a much better bowler in domestic cricket. So
You're 100%
they
right, Gandalf.
they have to fit in Cameron Green. So the
Yeah.
only way to fit in Cameron Green is number four. And
Yeah.
what do we do with the opening slot where Bancroft has not convinced everyone that he's great at the international level? Marcus Harris neither. And then you have Matt Renshaw, who has not scored really heavily at the top of the order. So the only way to do that is to move Smith up the order. At number
Yeah.
three, Marnus is settled, and Smith
Mhm.
wants to take up the challenge. So it's a win-win
Yeah.
for both, and that's the whole rationale.
Yeah, I
The
think it's
story.
very evident that Cameron Bancroft is the only loser in this situation.
Yeah,
That's unfortunate for him.
sadly, yeah,
And Cameron Green, Australia see him as the generational talent. And if you look at the Australia squad, I know we are on this dream run the last couple of years, but most of the squad is 30 plus, and like your core players are 34 and 35, be it uh, Kawaja or Steve Smith. I think the Australian think tank wants to uh, make sure that Cameron Green has enough matches under his belt before the old guard departs, and that means having to settle for makeshift, arrangement like this,
yeah,
where unfortunately it's Bancroft who's having to sit out. But
yeah,
enough talk. I think now it's up to Steve Smith to do all the talking on the pitch. And I'm absolutely thrilled. Like, you and I could debate all you want, but at the end of the day, every Australian opening their TV sets for fans like us sitting out of India, doing that at 5 a.m. in the morning and not having to wait a couple of hours or something for Steve Smith to walk in. I think that's just thrilling, right? So let's look forward to the game. And if there is any side that you want to test it out against in the current situation, West Indies is probably the best side to do that. Um, let's see what the future holds.
absolutely. Thank you, Kriska. Thanks everyone for joining us, and please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.